All right, guys, and I am back. Not sure that's what you wanted to hear, but here. Alrighty. So we're back for session 2 of the George Sew Along. Oh, missing the ears. There we go, guys. I just gotta say, I don't know how many of us put these on our kids or put these on our dogs, but something we should be aware of is we're actually torturing them because it digs in right here. Just a second. So it'll come off in a little bit, but I want to see how you guys are doing and how your bags are coming. We've got all those little components that we've put together already. So we have our, what do we have? We have these little teeny tiny handle anchors, and we have strap anchors that go on all of our rings. We have overlay bits. Apparently I need to press mine again. I let it wrinkle. And we did a magnetic snap. And we've created the front pocket. That's pretty good, guys. That's a lot. We're not done, but that's a lot. So there is a question that came up, and a friend of mine had warned me she was going to ask this, and I was going to address it in the first video, but yeah, my brain's not that good today. The question was, what if she wants to put a twist lock on the pocket instead of a magnetic snap? So let's talk about that for a minute. Those little twist locks from Emmeline bags, the nice simple kind, that one's rose gold. It's so pretty. Okay. You can use the exact same placing as you would your magnetic snap. I'm going to tilt you down to my projects here again. I'm going to hand walk you through this. So, tilting. All right. Still got my coffee here. Still working on this. It's a second one. I had to warm it up. So when you're looking at using a twist lock like this, let's see if I can even open the bag today. There's your first challenge. If you can't open it, you can't use it. I think that's my new rule. We have a couple of components, and I'm not going to take it all out because I will lose screws. First, we have the male part, and then we have our female parts. What you want to do is you still want to mark on your body where that male part's going to go. Okay? Exact same placement for this lock specifically. Exact same placement, and you want to install that. Do put an extra stabilizer behind that one because the foam is soft, and you want this to stand out straight even after some wear. So you're going to install that. You're then going to make your pocket without a magnetic snap. But before you sew it onto the body, you're going to want to install this piece. So what I would actually do is I would lay this down on my body, make sure my bottom's lined up and my sides are even, and place it down, and I would mark on the back side where this is coming up to, and then use this washer on the back side, place it where that mark is, and that's going to be your cutting hole. And that will allow you to install, see if I can lay that nicely, that piece there with this coming up from the back, and now you have a twist lock installation. Okay, so hope that helps, April. You do want to put that female piece on prior to sewing this down. You can do it later. That it's not life or death to put it on later. But it's just easier when this isn't attached to put that female piece on. See if I can get this back in that bag now. So a couple of things I just want to toss out there before we get moving along. I cannot see your comments, so I will address them after, but I do have my phone here, so I put a post up asking you to put your comments in there, just if you have something that you need me to answer during this feed. So I can keep an eye on that post. And if you have questions that you need an immediate answer to or something like that, pop it in there. And and hopefully I'll be able to get to those sooner than later. But I am going to answer your questions when I get off live. So I am still answering. The other thing I want to toss out is there's other closures you could use, such as these edge connectors that will fit nicely up there on this carry-all size. Let's take a look at that. You might find it's a little too big for the handbag size, but you can always slightly adjust the size of that tab on the handbag size if you want it. Okay, so I'm going to set those aside. Just a couple of options for you to consider if you don't like that closure. Some other things that people have done. So May, or Isabella Sparsh, has a YouTube video of her making her carry-all. And one of the things she's done is she did not put a closure in. Instead, she sewed up the center and back down. So she had two pockets, which is ideal for, say, your cell phone, those little things that you're taking with you. Maybe even your scissors for some reason. If you're turning this into a sewing machine bag, hey, get scissors. Just saying. Another way that she did this is she actually put a snap. So she had the one part of the snap there, and then the other actually goes through both layers this way. So again, just like your twist lock, you put it on after this part, but you still put that piece on earlier. Okay. Now I have left the plastic on there for no reason, because it's not in a space where it's going to get scratched or anything. So I can take that off. Sometimes you do want to leave that plastic on your hardware, like on those female plates on your hardware. Then when you're moving things around or stuff like that, it doesn't get scratched. However, always remove it before you take an iron to that area. You really don't want to permanently fuse that plastic on. All right, so this is our second session, and in the second session, if I grab my agenda again, we are going to apply the pocket and overlays. We're going to apply the strap anchors and the handle anchors, and then we're going to talk about our zipper gusset construction. So let me set this one aside. And we're going to bring over my started one. And here are all those bits and pieces we were working on in the previous video. Oh, I'm missing, oh, there it is. Okay. Just making sure I have all the stuff I need. I've got more than necessary, let me tell you. So when I finished sewing my pocket piece, I magnetic snapped it. I snapped it together. I lined up the bottom, and then I've basted down the two sides of it and across the bottom. Okay, I'm gonna use my little pointer toolie. Okay, so I have used black thread, so you can't see the stitching, but I've basted it in place all the way along. The next thing is to attach your overlays. These overlays, one of the reasons we don't want to add extra interfacing to the fabric, because that's a question I get a lot. Why didn't I fuse fabric to the overlay before I sewed it to that other piece of interfacing? The reason for that is this stitching, this top stitching that we're going to do, I'm going to shift this a little closer. This top stitching goes through the exterior with fusible interfacing, the foam, the interior with fusible interfacing, then the body with fusible interfacing and foam. So you're going through a lot of layers, and if we actually added more interfacing to the overlay, you're just adding bulk for the sake of adding bulk, in my opinion. Plus, we're trying to restrict the amount of bulk on this outside edge because that's some of our final construction stitching, and we get a lot of layers in there. So it's all about that reduction of bulk. And as you can see, it still looks nice. It doesn't need that extra interfacing. So when applying, so we've basted our pocket in place. Now we're applying our overlays. Let me shift some of this more out of the way. I just lost that on the other end of the desk. We'll have to come back to that. What we want to do is you want to line this up along the edge here. When you look at your pattern pieces, it's very, very, very subtle. When you look at those pattern pieces, there is a point right here and a point right here, and those line up, okay? Very subtle, which is why it's not in the pattern. Plus, by the time you've cut fabric and interfacing and foam and yeah, you don't really see it, but it should be where your pocket meets that edge is where that point is going to line up. If, however, you've got that nice perfect curve, don't panic, because really this is just going to sit nicely along that curve in the right spot. Now, some of us are perfectionists, and I am not holding that against anybody at all. But there is a way to make sure things are straight. It's called a ruler. Something I like to do is I'll lay my ruler along the top, and based upon where one sits, I want the other to sit. Okay, so I'm checking, I've laid my ruler against this one that I've sewn down. Okay, so my ruler sits right against that top edge, and I'm looking to see what line my ruler is sitting on here. I'm then making sure my ruler is straight all the way across. And over here, I'm going to pull my overlay up to that exact spot and clip. That should make these overlays even. Another way of doing this, okay, would be flip it in place where you think it needs to go. Apparently I should move those clips over here. Okay. Fold it in half. Okay. If you fold it in half, you're going to see where your overlays come up to and make them even. Same with the bottom. As you come around, line up your overlays. And then they'll be even on both sides of the bag. Okay, so we're going to put those on for both halves of our bag. Both panels are constructed the exact same way. And once you've applied that, you'll have this beautiful pocket with the overlays on it. You are top stitching all the way down. If you wanted to, you could use some more adhesives to hold this in place. I'm an Elmer's glue stick girl. Toss some glue under there. Yeah, it's purple, but it dries clear according to all my kindergarten classes. If I'm impatient, I'll pop this over to the iron and press that glue. It sets it really, really quick, and I'm ready to go. Another option is Wonder Tape. It's wash away Wonder Tape. It is sewable. You can sew through this. I am not going to talk about other double-sided tapes because I don't know if you can sew through them, and I don't have experience. This is the only double-sided tape I will use if I may get a stitch near it. Otherwise, I'll use any other double-sided tape if I'm not going to stitch near it. So in the case of this, you could toss some glue in here, you can toss some double-sided tape in here on the inside, hold it in place, you can clip it, you can pin it. If you're using the cork, don't press that. If you're using vinyl, don't press that. I really don't want to see melted vinyl today. That's a sad thing. Okay, so you can top stitch that down. You're going to top stitch all the way along that curve, staying even to the edge. I've done a 1/8 seam allowance with a 3.5 stitch length. Then I just continued stitching all the way around the outside to baste it in place and hold all those layers. And so I'll do that on that other side in a few minutes. The next step, I'm going to get these pattern pieces out of my way. Again, if you have questions about that, don't hesitate to toss them in the comments. I will answer those as soon as I'm offline. All right. Our next step are our strap anchors. Okay. You can see I've already attached one. What we're going to do is use our trusty ruler again to come up with the measurement from the top edge. So we're going to toss our ruler down. I still have things on my table in my way. These big rulers. Okay, I'm just double checking my measurements. All right, so we are coming. This is for the carry-all. I want to specify that. The handbag has slightly different instructions. So we are going to place this at the measurement identified. And what I'm doing is I'm lining up my 2.5 inch line with the top edge of my pattern piece. Then this time I'm using a clover chalker because it's going to show up on the black. And I've drawn my line here and here. The instructions do say go all the way across. It's because it's easier than me giving you 8 different measurements to do one line. But you're really marking where your handle, your strap anchors are going to go. So I've already done that. Then I actually take a smaller ruler. And the next measurement is to come from the side. The next measurement, I am coming 1, 2, 3, 4 1/4 along that line. So what I'm doing is I'm lining up my ruler so my line is directly on that chalk line I drew. Okay, 4 1/4. And I'm stopping at the edge of the fabric on my 4 1/4 mark. Okay, so I can do this with any line on the ruler. I just need to make sure I'm at that 4 1/4 on the edge of the fabric. And now, chalk mark. Yeah, I marked the snot out of that. Okay. And I happen to land on one of those light blue lines. Okay. Now, we're going to take our strap anchor, and we have this line and this line. This top edge will be along that top line, and this inside edge is going to be against this line. So over here, I had a line here, so the inside edge of that strap anchor is against it. This is going to sit right there. Okay. So again, we have our chalk line coming across here, which is the top of our strap anchor, and we have a chalk line coming straight down here, which is the inside edge of our strap anchor. Okay. Now, this is a unique spot. Because these aren't our finished strap anchors, and what I mean by finished is you're not going to see the body of this strap anchor. What I do is I do a bunch of stitching. It's all reinforcement, it's all stabilizing it, and it's keeping it more secure if I decide to put some rocks in my bag. During the construction of our strap anchors, you are to draw a line 1 inch up from the bottom. Okay, I do have a line there. I'm going to mark it again because it's super not visible. Okay. Bear with me. I dropped my handle anchor off the other side of the table. So I'm just taking a little down here. Okay. So once we've done that stitching, when you do that stitching, don't go above that line. You want to stay a little below it because this strap anchor will sit right against that line. And you're going to center it side to side, and this is going to get top stitched down. When you go to top stitch this, you want to start in the top corner, come across, do the rest of the body of it, and come across again. That gives you 2 lines of stitching to provide a little extra strength on that wear spot. Okay? This is also another opportunity to do embellishments. You could put some rivets in here, Chicago screws. I even have some of those glittery rivets. They're decorative, they're not functional. But they would be beautiful in that if I was trying to bling up my bag. And that is how you're going to finish your strap anchors here. I didn't press this one, but it's going to go over here too. Okay, so that is going to finish our exterior panels. I'm just going to pop over and check my tips and tricks. See if there's something else. Oh, the handbag. I talked about how we use these measurements for the carry-all. On the handbag, bear with me. On the handbag, you have handle anchor placement, strap anchor placement. Okay? These tabs are meant to sit directly on that placement. See how it's at a bit of an angle? That's so that it sits nicely when you're holding the bag. Okay? So it's at a slight angle so that the handles angle in towards your hand. So what I do is I take my pattern piece and I cut along 3 lines. You could do 4. That's your decision. And I flip that out of the way, and I will use my marking tool to trace that out. And that will allow me then to place my entire strap anchor at the right angle on my handbag. Okay, so slightly different technique for the handbag. It gives you that beautiful angle on it. Keep that over there before I lose it. I need to tuck those in. All right. So I'll have to finish those up when I take my next break. So constructing exterior pocket. We already talked through that. Transferring these strap anchors, tracing the rectangle. All right. I'm going to set this one aside. And we are going to talk about our zipper gusset. Oh, zippers. Who loves zippers? I feel nobody put up their hand. Just asking. You know, this might be a good time to talk to you about presser feet. So I have a lining base and I have an exterior base. The exterior base has a piece of Peltex and then it has the foam. And mine, I decided to do some little extra stitching across that Peltex piece. You could put purse feet on it. You can do whatever you'd like. I would not do that to the lining piece. I feel that would be a lot of wasted effort because it's inside. Then we have 4 gusset pieces, 2 lining and 2 exteriors. The exteriors have your foam attached to it. And what we're going to do, I use Zipper by the Yard. 99% of the time it comes from Emmeline bags because it's beautiful. It's got the metallic coil on it, black zipper tape or white. This is a number 5 zipper. When we talk about number 5 zippers, what we're talking about is your zipper teeth are 5 millimeters wide. Your zipper tape is 1¼ inches wide. When you look at a number 3 zipper, let me grab my zipper pocket here. Of course, it's a black zipper, so you're not going to see very well. A number 3 or a standard dress zipper, let's call it that. It has 3 millimeter wide teeth, and the zipper tape is 1 inch wide. How does that affect you? What that means is when you sew a number 3 zipper, you typically want to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. When you sew a number 5 zipper, you typically want to use a 3/8 seam allowance. Don't get too close to the teeth on either one, or you will prevent yourself from being able to open that zipper. You need enough space on the sides of the zipper to open up your zipper with that zipper head. And the zipper head is fatter than the zipper itself. Now my number 5 zipper, you'll actually notice there are no zipper heads on it right now. I've always found it easier to sew long straight stretches without having to move a zipper head than it is to move a zipper head. So I do have both my zipper heads floating around here somewhere. Oh, here we go, in my little hardware kit baggie. Even I buy the hardware kits from Emmeline Bags, and it's just easier to keep it all together. I have these little skull pulls. I just think are adorable. Plus, it's the only gunmetal ones I had. Okay. I'm actually not going to put those on until I've got both sides of my gusset on here. That is a personal preference. That's up to you as to when you want to have them on. If you're not comfortable putting your zipper heads on and taking them off and putting them on and taking them off, put them on once, leave them on. Super important. It can take a lot of practice to learn that technique really well. So here you see I already have half my zipper gusset installed. Here's what we do to put this together. We are sandwiching our zipper. Okay. We are taking a lining piece. Okay. We're laying our zipper down along it with the zipper right side up. So the wrong side of the zipper is against the right side of the lining. Then you're taking your exterior zipper gusset and putting it right side down on top. So this means when you look at the zipper layers, you have right side of the zipper against the exterior. You have the right side of the lining against the interior of the zipper, okay? And again, your zipper coil is on the top of the zipper, which is your right side or your exterior side. So basically the right sides of the exterior together and the right sides of the interior together. Okay, we're going to sew those together with a 3/8 seam allowance. There are many, many ways to do that. Let's come back to our friend, the double-sided tape. This is 1/4 inch wide tape. I can take a piece of this and lay it all the way along that edge, peel the paper off of it, and lay my zipper right side up, right along that edge. Okay. I could then put another piece of tape on top of that zipper and lay this one right side down on top. Take it to my machine and sew a 3/8. That's one option. Another option is no tape, and this is not for the faint of heart. Take your lining, place your zipper on top, take it to the machine. Line up your edges with your zipper and your edge of your fabric and baste it in place. Basting again, big stitch, because you're probably going to have to tear it out at some point. And a smaller seam allowance, 1/8 seam allowance. Then lay this one on top and do your full 3/8 seam allowance. Okay? That's typically how I do this. The most important thing is when you take this to the sewing machine with your zipper in it, when you take this to the sewing machine with your zipper in it, lay your lining on the bottom against your feed dogs and your foam on top. Okay? Again, I discussed this on the making of the pocket. If you experience whenever making a zipper gusset that your lining seems longer than your outside and you know you cut them right, it's because you sewed it with the lining on top and your presser foot, let's grab a presser foot here, is pushing that fabric along. While it's pushing that fabric along, it's basically stretching it. It's not stretching it to the point where it's going to be a problem, but it is pushing it out of the way, whereas your feed dogs are feeding the fabric nicely. It's harder for your machine presser foot to push the foam along because your fabric that's behind it is staying in place. So when you're sewing, if you sew with your foam on top, your presser foot's not going to extend your gusset. So bottom line there, sew with your lining on the bottom against your feed dogs. You'll be happier. Now, if you do experience that problem where your lining seems a little longer than your exterior, trim it off. It's not going to be a life or death scenario. Just trim that little excess. Assume your exterior piece is the right length. It has that foam and the interfacing stabilizing it. Once you've sewn your two layers together this way at your sewing machine, you are then going to press your fabrics away from the zipper. Now, when you do that with foam in your seam allowance, you're going to get a bulky ridge right there. Okay. So I briefly touched on this in the last video. I trim my foam out of that seam allowance. Okay. So I'm going to bring this up closer to the camera. You can see I've taken the basting stitches out and taken the foam out right up to my stitch line, which is my construction stitch line. In every class I teach, I make them do this a few times and then give them the call as to whether they want to do it in the future or not. And by the end of the class, they do see the pieces where they had taken the foam out versus the pieces where they hadn't taken the foam out of that seam allowance. And the seams are poofier. I'm going to make that a real word, poofier, in the ones where the foam is still in the seam allowance. It's your call. Your bag. Another option for that is if you know that seam is sewn perfectly, you could zigzag stitch that foam down, compressing the foam. I don't do that because I trust that I'm going to notice my mistake in a couple hours and have to come back and tear it out. And tearing out zigzagging is a lot more work than just recutting a piece of foam. So I have pressed my exterior away from my zipper. I've also pressed my lining away from my zipper. And now I'm going to top stitch this. Okay? Now we're going to do this for both sides of the zipper. So my next step will be to take my lining, lay my zipper down on top of it, raw edges aligned. I can use my double-sided tape. I could take it to the machine and baste it, however I want to do that. What we want to make sure of, though, is when you're lining up this edge with this edge, this end and this end are even. Or if you have marked the center of your zipper and the centers of your gusset pieces, line up your center pieces and go from there. Okay? So I need to base that in place, sew this down. All right, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to put a couple of clips in place. And then I'm going to talk to you about top stitching for 2 seconds here. I wanted to give you some tips and tricks on some of my stitching techniques and my sewing machine techniques, just to give you an idea of how I do things. And of course, it all comes down to zippers. You got to talk about this during zippers. Zippers have so many things. Okay, so this is going to sit this way. Presser feet. I have 2 sets of presser feet here. Okay, so I have these type. Oops. These type, which if I recall the term, these are a high shank presser foot. These are for my Bernina. Okay. Then I have these type, which are those really low, just feet. I've got the, so I could hold it. I thought I'd bring this piece over. But these feet are the low ones. Okay. So we have, when I do my top stitching, I happen to use what is referred to as a stitch in the ditch foot. You can see it has a metal bar right in the middle. On this one, got a funky mechanism looking one. Still has that bar right in the middle. Okay. That bar I will set right against the edge of my fabric. Okay. And then my needle, I will shift it from being in the center to being to the side. Okay. And that is going to give me, I'm going to stitch right there, and that is going to give me a 1/8 seam allowance and a guide to press my fabric against. So a really good way of showing this. I'm going to move my zipper gusset out of the way. I'm going to grab my handle. Okay. See if I can show this to you. Let's go to this side. If I set that bar right against the edge of the fabric, I'm going to set my needle to the right of it. Okay. So same thing with this one. Setting the bar right against the side of the fabric, my needle is going to go down right here. I almost get to let it feed itself when it's doing a strap. Okay. So I wanted to point out those presser feet, see if it's something that you wanted to try. When sewing your zipper in place, you're going to be looking for a zipper foot so that you can get close to your zipper teeth without your presser foot being pushed out of the way. So here's one zipper foot. And this is my Bernina zipper foot. Very similar. Others may have a little bit of bulk here. I've seen those as well. And some actually have this bar that holds onto the foot in two places so that you can put your zipper foot on this way or on this way so you can move your needle to one side or the other. Don't happen to have one of those handy. When you're sewing, let's take this one. Let's grab just the zipper for a moment. Find the easiest way to show you how this works. When you're sewing, you're going to have your zipper foot there. I need another hand. Different angle. Okay? And your needle's going to come down in that space there. I'm not sure that you can see that. Okay? So again, zipper foot, needle comes down over here. You may need to take a moment at your sewing machine to find out with your presser foot, your zipper foot, what a 3/8 seam allowance looks like. Set your foot, set your needle, and then measure with a ruler, a measuring tape, a seam guide, anything, just to see where 3/8 from your needle sits, because that's where the edge of your fabric needs to sit on your machine. All right, let's toss those feet away for a moment. We're going to keep going with the zipper gusset. All right, so we have a zipper gusset. We've pressed our fabrics away on that side and away on this side. I didn't line those up very well. Got it. Okay, and we've top stitched down both sides of this. The next step is actually to toss on our rings. Before you put your strap anchors on, make sure your zipper pulls are on your zipper and in the middle somewhere. Always double check. Because what we're going to do is we're going to set this down on here. We're going to offset this by a 1/2 inch. Okay. So draw a line, offset it by a 1/2 inch. So basically it's going to sit like this from this edge here. Okay. And you're going to baste it in place. You can leave your zipper long. Leaving your zipper long is never going to hurt you. And down the road, it can provide some structural integrity again. Also, if using zipper by the yard, you might want to heat set that. Take a lighter. Be very, very cautious. Don't use a torch like I do. I'm dangerous. And just melt the end a little bit. Okay, so we've now got our zipper closed off. We've got our strap anchor on there. And we take our exterior base, the exterior gusset. You're going to line that up. You're going to do the same thing for the other side. So the lining is going to sit underneath there. And you're going to sew that with a 3/8 seam allowance. Guess what I'm going to tell you to do then? Take your foam out. Yeah, take your foam out. Because when you flip this back and you're going to go top stitch this, that bulk can make or break you when you hit this spot. Okay, now this is also why I highly suggest having a stronger machine if you're going to do cork or vinyl. Have something reliable, because right now this is your bulk section. Okay, you have a lot of layers going on in here. You're going to top stitch along this. Okay, you're then going to bring this back to the other end. Okay, and you're going to line it up there. Same with your lining, and do the same thing and baste everything together. So your two bases will get basted along its long edges to the lining, and you will have a full zipper gusset. Now, of course, before I do my next one, I will show you what that actually looks like, but you're going to have a full circle of a zipper gusset going on there. Okay. So let's see where I'm at here. 11, 11, 11, zipper gusset. Oh, something I do toss in there is you could always add a rivet underneath your D-ring tabs on your zipper gusset or your base piece, just if you wanted that aesthetic. Okay. So I'm going to bring you back up to me for a moment. 45 minutes of video. You guys have got to be tired of watching me by now. Just a reminder, if there's questions in the comments, I'm going to come back to those immediately and go through those, make sure that you have all the answers you need. But what we've just focused on is the creation of this zipper gusset that goes all the way around. Okay. After doing all the overlay decorative stuff and structural integrity of our strap anchors, I'm just going to pop through my tips here for a moment. Double-sided tape, remove basting stitches and trim the foam. Yeah, so I've gone through all of my notes. And I think you are ready to go sew again. So I'm going to take a couple minutes and answer questions just in the group. This video is not going anywhere. It's sticking around for you guys to play at your own leisure. And if you wanted to just restart it again, just wait for it to pop up in the news feed on the Bag of the Month Club. You can watch it again. You can even skip past all that presser foot stuff if you're not interested. And I will see you guys in 2 hours and 15 minutes. That will be 2 o'clock my time, which is Mountain Daylight Time. I'm in the mountains. I'm in Alberta. So if you're in the Ontario area, I believe that's Eastern time. That will be 4 o'clock your time. Central is 3 o'clock. If you're joining us from the UK or Australia, I have no clue. I'm not even going to pretend to know that one. But we're also going to have a scene change for the next video because I want to show you some of the sewing that I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to take you to my dining room where I have the ability to move a little bit more around my machine. Whereas in my sewing room, I got a wall back there. So it's not going to work. So I will see you in 2 hours and 15 minutes. Thanks, guys.